Man, over the years in the UFC, it feels like we're always getting that one guy. Undefeated, highlight reels all over Twitter, the guy everyone's calling the future, and usually the UFC doesn't slow play it, okay? Nah, they crank the hype machine to full blast, throw them into a giant matchup, and most of the time, they lose. But here's the thing, man. Before I get into all the examples of the hype trains, crashing, let's talk about why the UFC even does this. Because a lot of people forget that this isn't just a sport, it's a business. Think about it. You've got that one crazy knockout that goes viral on Twitter or TikTok, and boom, that guy's face is everywhere. The UFC is not going to sit around and slow burn that dude. Nah, they're thinking, strike when the iron's hot, put him on a main card, throw him against a big name, cash it in on that big buzz before it dies down. It's smart business, to be honest. And honestly, they've got the data to back it up. The UFC tracks everything, from social media, engagement, Google searches, trending spikes. They know exactly which fighters are buzzing, and they adjust the matchmaking just to feed that wave. It's not random. When you see a hyped up newcomer fighting a top 10 guy out of nowhere, trust me, that's not a mistake. That's a strategy.
It's kind of like match telling instead of matchmaking. The UFC knows if you put a fresh face against a veteran, you get one of two outcomes. And either way, it sells. The prospect wins, boom, you just build a star overnight. The vet wins, that's a fraud check. Fans love that too. Either way, Dana and the company win because everybody talks about it the next day. And look, man, from a business point of view, it makes sense. That's how you get guys like Conor McGregor blowing up overnight. The UFC didn't just give him a fight, they built him into a global brand. When it works, it's magic. But, and this is the point I really want to stress, just because it works for business doesn't mean it's good for the fighters. Because now you've got dudes getting pushed up the ladder way too quick, sometimes skipping steps. And yeah, it makes money in short terms, but long terms, you're burning careers. That's the trade-off. And that's what really bugs me. Because these fighters that have a lot of hype, they get into these giant matchups, and most of the time, they lose. And listen, there's a reason for that. Sometimes it's just the skill gap, sometimes it's the lack of experience, and sometimes it's the pressure of being in the spotlight just too soon. But my main issue with the UFC right now is the structure, where they see a fighter with momentum, maybe he just cracked the top 15, and they immediately go, all right, cool, let's toss him to the Wolves at number 3 and see what happens. Like, bro, what? We've seen it time and time again. I mean, look at Benoit Saint Denis. He got thrown in there with Dustin Poirier. Huge step up. And we saw what happened. Or look at Bo Nickal. And to be fair, Bo kind of deserved that, that push, how cocky he was. But even then, you could tell fighting Rainier de Ridder at that point wasn't the move. Wrong time, wrong place. UFC let it happen, and he got derailed. Same with Raul Rosas Jr. getting Christian Rodriguez. Or Peyton Tabby getting tested way too soon. It's like they hand these kids a top 10 vet and say, good luck, buddy. Now, I get why the UFC does it. Like I mentioned earlier, it's business-wise. It makes sense. Strike while the iron's hot, am I right? Cash in on the hype, sell tickets, get the buzz going. But on the flip side, most of these dudes end up crashing. Darren Till is another big one. Beat Cowboy, and then barely beat Wonderboy, got rushed into a title shot, fought Woodley, crash and burn, and honestly, look what it did to his career. The dude never really fully recovered from that. And that's the danger of fast tracking, because it's not just about the matchup, it's also about the mental aspect, the pressure of being the next big thing, the media shoving a mic in your face every week. Fans expect greatness. That kind of weight crushes a lot of guys before the cage door even closed. And then you add in the skill gap, and then you add in the fact that they haven't gone 5 rounds with killers before. And yeah, you get hype rounds derail real quick. And that's what annoys me, man. But what really annoys me is that the UFC could just build these fighters up slowly, let them climb step by step, give them a lot of experience, give them 2 to 3 fights against ranked guys around their level, let them figure it out. And if they lose, okay? Then throw them into deep water. Instead, it's like they skip half the ladder, and yeah, sometimes it works. I mean, Sean O'Malley survived it. Khamzat's been killing it. I mean, they both became champions. But for every one of those guys, you get a handful of guys who never bounce back, okay? And here's the other part of this whole thing about, that annoys me. About the fans, especially. Man, fans love this fraud check culture, okay? You know what I'm talking about. The second a prospect gets fast-tracked, people aren't just excited to see if they're the future. Half the fan base is already sitting there, like, rubbing their hands together, like, all right, let's see them get humbled. It's wild, but it makes sense. That's just human nature. People love seeing the mighty fall, especially if the fighter's been talking big or looking untouchable. If the dude comes in cocky or the UFC promo has him like the next Conor, a lot of fans are just itching for someone to expose him. That fraud checked headline the morning after, bro, that's like candy for MMA Twitter, right? And from a story perspective, it's perfect. It doesn't matter which way it goes. If the prospect wins, boom, you've got a new star. If the veteran wins, it's, see, told you he wasn't ready, hype train derailed. Either way, the internet eats it up. The media outlet knows this too. That's why you see those exact words plastered on headlines, hype train derailed, fraud checked, exposed. Fans love that drama. But here's where I go back and forth on it. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it feels like it's deserved. Like if a guy's been running his mouth or he's been protected, by the higher ups, yeah, watching him get humble is part of the fun. But sometimes it's just harsh, man. A young fighter takes one L against a top 10 killer and suddenly the whole internet is calling him a fraud, writing him off completely. Like, bro, he's 23 years old. He just fought a guy with 30 pro fights. Let's chill. And the UFC knows the culture exists. They lean into it. They book those fresh prospects versus veterans fights because they know fans are going to tune in, whether it's to see them rise or see them crash. And that's the dark side of fraud checking culture. It creates drama, but it's also a stunt development. Instead of giving time for these guys to grow, you throw them in there, hope for fireworks, and then the narrative sticks forever. So yeah, I get it. Fraud check fights are fun. The memes are hilarious. And sometimes the cocky kid deserves to get humbled, I'll be real. But man, it also ruins a lot of legit careers before they even hit their prime. That's why I'm torn on it. It's entertaining, but it's toxic at the same time. And here's the other crazy part. On the other side, the UFC also uses veterans as stepping stones. You get these crafty vets who've been around forever, and the UFC sets them up to get eaten by the younger generation. And don't get me wrong, I understand it. It's business. It's how you pass the torch. But sometimes, man, it just feels like you're just slowing down momentum, or it kills careers way too early than it should. It's all for a quick storyline. That's the main point I'm trying to get across. The UFC loves to thrive on hype. Now, to be fair, it's not all bad. There's another side to the argument, but I've got to acknowledge it. Because sometimes, yeah, the UFC does fast track guys, and it works. Like, it worked on Khamzat. Ilya Topuria comes to mind, Sean O'Malley. Those guys got thrown into the fire early, passed with flying colors, and now they're legit stars. I mean, except Sean O'Malley. And you know what? From a business standpoint, that's gold. When it works, it's perfect. The UFC makes a star overnight, fans are hyped, and the whole division gets shaken up. But here's the thing that bugs me. While some dudes rise to the occasions, others basically get handed an easy path to the top. They're not necessarily proving themselves the hard way. They're just getting favorable matchmaking, padding their record, and sliding into a big spot without going through the grinder. I mean, look at Paddy Pimblett. If you look at his last stretches of fights, he fought Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green, Michael Chandler, and now boom, he's sitting pretty in the top 7. Like, what? I get it. He's getting the cage time. He's gaining the experience. But let's be real. That was a soft climb. That's not the same road that Arman Tsarukyan or Gamrot had to go through. And you can say the same thing about Sean O'Malley. He mostly beat cans. Then he had a weird no contest with Pedro Munoz because of that eye poke. Next thing you know, he's fighting Peter Yan in a number 1 contender fight. And to Sean's credit, he did it. He beat Yan. Then turned around and beat Aljo to become champion. Respect for that. But still, he skipped the damn line. He didn't have to claw through murderer's row like everyone else, and that bugs me. It's like, congrats, he's a badass, he cashed in, but he didn't exactly take the long road to the belt. And in my opinion, the only time you should ever get that kind of shortcut is if your division is weak. Like heavyweight, man. If you're in the heavyweight division, then sure, get fast-tracked all day, because that division is weak as hell. But when you've got a stacked division full of killers, like bantamweight, like featherweight, like lightweight, it feels ridiculous. Like when Khalil Roundtree beat Anthony Smith and for some reason he gets a title shot, even though Magomed is in that weight class, that really bugged me at the time. Like, bro, what are we doing here? And that's the problem with the UFC, bro. You either got hype trains getting wrecked before they even take off, or dudes jumping the whole line like it's a VIP pass. And in the middle, you've got grinders fighting their ass off, just sitting there, waiting, hoping their number finally gets called. Another problem is the rankings. The rankings don't even matter. Don't get me even started on Dana White, the way he moves those around. Sometimes it feels like he just makes it as he goes. But instead, they're just another tool that the UFC uses to push whatever storyline or fire they want to promote. And that's the frustrating part for me, at least. If you're flashy, you've got that rocket strapped to your back. If you're a grinder, you basically have to beg and wait for a champion to retire or pray that the stars align before you even get mentioned. And it just feels like the UFC is leaving legit talent in the dark because the style isn't marketable. So yeah, man, when you really step back and look at the whole system, it's kind of cooked. You got hype trains getting thrown in too soon most of the time and they crash. And you've got other guys skipping the line completely because they're flashy, they got nice highlights, or they look marketable. Then you've got wrestlers and grinders, dudes with legit resumes, being ignored because their style doesn't sell. And the rankings, half the time it feels like Dana and the UFC are just moving names around to fit whatever storyline they're pushing that month. At the end of the day, man, that's why I always say this isn't a real pure sport. It's entertainment first, sport second. Wins and loss matter, but not as much as clicks, ticket sales, and hype. That's why some fighters get built into stars overnight, while others with better records get left waiting for their title shot for years. And look, I get it. The UFC's got to make money. They're trying to keep their fans engaged, keep the headlines hot. But if we're calling it a sport, then it should feel like a sport. The prestige of the sport should matter more than the buzz. But right now, it doesn't. And that's the part that bugs me the most. Of course, it's always been like that, but I wish that the sport would evolve, you know? But I don't know if we'll ever get to see that day. But yeah, I just wanted to rant today, you know, complain about some of the things I saw and that have been bugging me about the UFC, like matchmaking and the ranking itself. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like always, guys, I'll see you guys on my next one.